Hello, Barack.
Ryan,
Oh,
how you go? Missed you for a few days,
lost
eh?
my mic. All right. The second we went live, I pulled my mic off.
Wonderful.
Hello, Briat. How are you
Mm.
today?
Very good. It was a massive thunderstorm last night, so things are a bit cooler here today. I didn't have to have my fans on all day, so it's been nice.
Yay.
Nice.
It's getting a little cooler here. We're coming into winter, so it's overcast today.
All right, yeah.
Today's topic,
Hmm?
it's always beneficial, I think, but in these times specifically, is so I'm trying to, maybe you can help me with what we'll call it, but not not being afraid, not being afraid of change, not being afraid of um, thoughts. Help me here.
Not being afraid of accepting what is.
Well, that's definitely a way to say that.
Yeah.
So yeah, the spiritual way is acceptance and being able to accept where you are and being able to accept what's happening. As the Buddhists say, is all suffering is based on not accepting what is.
Hmm.
So, and it doesn't mean you can't change what is, but it's you need to accept where you are before you can do anything.
Right.
So yeah, that's a good. And then, but putting it in normal everyday terms is that not freaking out with world events and high level society change and things that you've never seen before.
Hmm.
How does that sound?
Yeah, that sounds great. I think that's a good topic of conversation. It's something I've been thinking about a lot also. Hmm.
Okay, good. So I'd like to take a look at it from a spiritual bent because in normal times, looking to see where you got your continuity and your safety. What's normal in society is getting it from the continuity of our reality. You know, that society has always been the way it is. We can always count on that. So we always know who we are in reflection to what's happening around us.
Hmm.
When everything changes around us, then people start questioning who they are.
Hmm.
So can you add something to that?
Yeah, people, or we generally, we find our sense of self in things that are outside of ourselves, which
Yes.
even includes our body. It even includes your body, because since we're different from the body, we're eternal spiritual beings residing in the body, like a driver sits inside a car, and then the body is like the car that's been driven by the driver, and the body is being driven by the soul, which sits inside, and like a machine. So even this body is outside of ourself. So firstly, we identify with the body, we identify with the mind, which is a subtle aspect which is connected to the body, but is also not us. So we identify with the way we think, the things we like and don't like, we with our own precepts and ideas. We identify with our physical body as being male and female, black or white, or American or South African, or this or that. And then as being an artist or musician or an eccentric or conservative or liberal, and there's a whole list of things you can put there. And then even further than that, it goes out into like the type of car you have, or the type of woman you're into, or the woman that you have, or the relationships that you have, your social standing, your house and where in town your house is located, and how big it is and how much it costs. And it expands all from there. But the point is that all of these things, they're temporary by nature, and at the moment, without a moment's notice, all of these things can change. Like you identify with this body and it can perform a particular function, and you identify with that, and then something happens and you become paralyzed, and all of a sudden it's almost half of your body doesn't work anymore, and it affects the entire body. And it's an identity crisis. You have to shift your whole sense of who am I. And the same goes for you lose your girlfriend that you've been together with 10 or 20 years, or your wife. And then there's also a big crisis in identity that goes through. How do I define myself now? And so this, we can get examples for any particular situation. So right now, you know, everybody's also been challenged with that, about the notion of things are going to be different when I come out, and how will I then reinvent myself. But the problem with that is that you just latch on to other externals to identify with, which are also temporary, and they will also change. So that doesn't really provide you proper security in that sense. So obviously, the line of thought that we like to take is to just look at it from a spiritual perspective, one of detachment and one of knowledge, and trying to perceive the soul as being separate from all of these things, and it has its own identity, which has nothing to do with all of these things around it. Because all of these things, they come, they go, they're unpredictable, they're temporary, whereas the soul is eternal. It has always been, it will always be, and it will never cease to be. And so for real peace of mind, it behooves one to connect to that reality. And then one can still operate in the physical world, but by being in that state of consciousness, it doesn't mean you can't function here, but it does mean that you will carry around you a certain peace, which people are looking for.
So before we, you said so many things that are actually worthy of looking at. So you started off with when we start identifying through the senses of what we like and what we dislike, that we you know, this is who I am. We start associating with the body as one of the first things that we associate with. You had an example of having to deal with that. Your body can change in the sense that you talked about an accident, and then all of a sudden that you don't have use of, you know, half of your body is can be terrifying for people, absolutely terrifying. And that, you know, aging, as you age and your body changes and your ability changes and your look changes, is, you know, something that people don't deal with very well. The point is they do need to deal with it. And they do need to accept. And really we're talking about attachments, being attached to things, you know, not accepting the what is, and being attached to these things outside of ourselves. Is that what our false identity is? Doesn't know what it is, so it starts creating feedback for itself to be able to determine its worth, frankly.
Yeah.
And that, so that's what, when people start identifying with all these external items, like my wife, my social group, the community, the person that I am in the community, how I'm seen, you know, the clothes that I have, the vehicles that I have, the house that I have, the job that I have, and all of these things that are external that you go, this is me, all of them can be taken away from you.
Yes.
And when you get, if these things get taken away from you, then people have no idea who they are from that moment on.
Mm.
They've invested, they've been attached to, they've been able to make a sense of who they are in this world by these things outside of themselves and these reflections. And I think where you were going now is having a spiritual connection to be able to define who you are is I'll let you take that from there, and then I'll add afterwards. So what about that spiritual connection, and what about what does that look like, if you can count the ways?
The spiritual connection. Well, in
like how you mm-hmm.
Yeah, how I? You can complete that question. How I?
Oh no, I thought you needed more information, but of what I meant. But I'll give it to you then anyway.
All right.
Is what if you're not connecting to these external items? Then what are you connecting to?
Ah, okay, good.
What is it that what's solid, and why is it solid?
Yeah. Okay, I understand. So this is the reason, like, I'm on the path I'm now, is the path of bhakti, or of devotion and service, is that the soul by nature wants to love and be loved. This is what everybody is after. They want to give love, and they want to receive love, and they want, there's a desire for there to be a perfect reciprocation. And this desire is coming because it is an unquenchable or unmutable desire that belongs, it's a quality of the soul itself. It's not an attribute of the mind or of the body, which are separate. So service is the medium through which love is expressed. So in any kind of way, if you want to express you love or appreciate somebody, then you do it. It's not just something you sit down and it's passive. I'm like, I love this person. I really, really love this person. I just so much love that's in me. Like love is not just a feeling. Sometimes love does not feel nice because sometimes love entails accepting an inconvenience for the one that you love. It's like, I don't know, you called up in 2 o'clock in the morning and a friend is like, I need you now. And you have to drive, I don't know, 40 minutes and it's cold outside and it's raining. And it's not nice. I mean, there's nothing nice about it. Having to get out of my warm, cozy bed. I was just having a great dream. And now I have to go into this cold car. It takes 10, 15 minutes for the heater in the car to heat up. And, and I have to drive to this place and deal with this mess. So it's not, in a sense, it's not a pleasant experience in terms of the storyline which is playing out. But it is an expression of love for that person. And there is a higher sense of satisfaction that you get from that. So this service, that nobody can take away from you. Nothing can take it away from you. The desire to do service and actually being able to do service. Even if you are in a state, you're like a quadriplegic and you're sitting down and you can't do anything, you can still speak. And even if you're deaf and you're mute, you can still think. And then all those faculties can be applied in service. So then on the devotional path, the object of the supremely lovable object of which one expresses the service is to the creator and the creation. And or we can express it to the creator via the creation. So even then one's mental faculties can be engaged in that sense, just thinking about how you want to render some service, doing something. That also counts as service because it's an expression of your soul, it's an expression of your will, which is manifesting in energy, putting into this thought. And then that is devotion. And also according to one's capacity, obviously, there are people at different capacities to actually do something. And what you actually achieve in the physical world isn't so important as in the sentiment or the devotional mood in which it is done, and the meditation of how much you're doing it to please the creator and how much you're doing it for some ulterior motive, which is basically for your own self-aggrandizement. And that can be any level of completely selfish and even up until being philanthropic, where you're giving in charity and working for others, but ultimately you're actually doing that so that you can be happy. So that's actually also still not devotional. It's still not devotion. It's a very subtle level, but it's still better. So anyway, so just to kind of round it up, is that this service identity, if you identify as I'm just a servant, I'm a servant of God, and all these creations and all these beings which are all part of him are ways in which I can express my love to him, like that. And then therefore every moment presents an opportunity for me to express my love to God through his various aspects, his different energies. And that's always available. Even if you die, that does not stop because everything else around you changes. But still, this identity you can carry with you because it's always applicable everywhere. So therefore, I found in my personal experience, it's a pretty solid thing to find your identity in, as being like, I'm a servant. Anyway, it's my nature. Everybody's nature is to want to serve in some way or other. And yeah, I don't know if that answers.
Yeah, that's it's certainly an aspect, and it's your aspect, but it's I think it's also it's an evolved. It's not the first thing that I dealt with when what was solid for me. And I'm going to try to use some of your words here because you really used some beautiful words in being able to describe things, like the soul's desire for love. So when I'm talking about what's solid for me and what I can count on, I'm going to do it in contrast to what, if I'm a normal human being that is living through my senses and the construct of what society is, then I'm attached to and I'm interested in what's going on in the world. The world stays the same, and I feel I can feel grounded and okay and solid in myself because the world is. I know what to expect. There's not a risk. I know who I am based on what's happening around me. And when things change around you, I mean, it's really interesting, as it can be as subtle as you lived in the same place for a really long time, and then one day you came out of your house and there's a tree that's on your block, a really beautiful, nice tree, and that tree was cut down. And all of a sudden it's really unsettling that, you know, it's one thing, it's unsettling that somebody cut down a tree. Maybe it had to, just say the tree had to be cut down for, it was diseased, and it had seen its better day, and it needed to be cut down because it was going to fall on somebody's house. Okay. But it's still interesting that the identity is upset about that tree's not there. That change is somehow bothering one, and would bother me. The small things like this is very small changes in my physical world all of a sudden has an impact on me where I feel less secure. So I'm kind of showing one end of the continuum. So when we have attachment to the construct of society, and now this is what has to do with today, is that, you know, everything that and the reason why I use the construct of society is, and those words, is that our money is made up, the stock market's made up, the value, the numbers that goes on the companies and the commodities are all made up. You know, there's the rules of why they're valued in certain ways, the measurements are made up. Virtually everything about our society is made up. It's made by humans. It reflects where the human beings as a group is at any given time. And how society is currently isn't working for most of the people. Who's been creating, you know, the fake or the construct reality is that if we don't create it ourselves, then people will create it for us. So having said that, so I'm not invested in that. I'm not invested. I know money's fake. I know it's fiat. I know that everything about society is not real. So I'm not really hanging my hat there. I'm not going, oh, I know who I am based on that all these things are consistent around me. And right now, things aren't very consistent. They're changing on a daily basis, and that makes people feel uncomfortable. So, and really uncomfortable at certain times. And the more that you hang your identity there, the more uncomfortable you're going to be. So the spiritual connection is been to being able to look inside and be able to connect to what it is that I actually truly am. I don't create myself, I discover myself. I feel, you know, I don't know that I like sushi until I try it. My body goes, yeah, this is good. Or my body goes, no, I don't like this. This is weird. This is raw fish. And everybody's had that experience for the most part, that their body tells them, they discover what they like and what they don't like. They don't make it up.
Yeah.
So my connection to, I already am something. So there's a discovery of who I am, and there's an energy and a feeling and a connection that I can have with myself. And then further from that, there's the, you know, Mother Earth, which is birthed everything here and energetically is connected to everything on this planet, including me, and that I can feel my energetic connection to the Earth. And that's not changing. It's not fake, it's not changing, and it's benevolent. And then past that is being able to look to all that is and creation is just there's a design, and that creation is benevolent, and that I am energetically created through my inner experience. I connect to both the earth and all that is, and that doesn't change either. So it doesn't matter what, with the construct of what human beings have created in society, no matter what changes or what they do or what happens there, if I'm not looking to actually understand my identity through it, therefore then I can actually be connected to who I truly am, no matter what goes on around me, and be grounded in the face of it, in spite of that it could get inconvenient. We don't like change. Ego doesn't like change, and we don't like inconvenience.
Yeah.
Did that bring up anything? So I just want to bring up some words that you said that I didn't fit in. The soul desires love, a perfect reciprocation of love, so that the deep love that I require and feel and want, you can have that perfect reciprocation to the creation, all that is. And anybody on a spiritual path that's opened up to that pretty much has that experience. It's unmutable, quality of the soul and of the self. And I think that's I love all those words, so I just thought I'd fit them in. Did the things that I said, does that do you have any response to that or anything to add?
Yeah, these kind of undesirable events which happen in our life, they serve the function of revealing these misidentities, these false identities that we have accepted as ourselves, and that they're excellent opportunities in shedding some of those false identities. And that pain that one feels is actually also a good thing, because as we've just talked in one of the previous podcasts, pain can be a very powerful instigator for reflection and positive change. That if one sees it as something that's just trying to draw your attention to something that requires attention, like you put your hand on a hot plate and then the pain is actually just there to draw your attention to something which is quite important. It needs your attention right now, because something bad could happen. You could get more hurt than you would otherwise would if you did not pay attention. So in other words, suffering or pain serves that function. So these kind of things, when they make us feel like that, then they generally indicate some kind of false notion of the self that we've accepted. And if one acts in a sense of service, then one sees that every opportunity, is just that an opportunity for me to serve. Like I was a monk, and then I was a monk for 7 years, and then when I changed and then started looking for a wife and got married, it was a massive change. It's like a whole identity shift in terms of how I operate in the world. Very big. I'm still adjusting 2 years later.
But very quiet there right now, by the way. It's very quiet.
They went outside. They went outside for a little walk. Yeah. So now it's like I'm serving as a monk. And then when I'm changing, now I'm serving as a wife, a father. I'm serving as a husband. I'm serving as a teacher in a school. I'm still serving as, I'm talking with you and we're doing these podcasts and we're trying to assist and promote transformation. So it's just different ways in which I can serve. And it's just the details of the service which have changed. But me as a servant, that has not changed at all. It's just the details of how I'm serving has changed. But that's not important, because one who just wants to serve, and if you really love somebody, then you will serve them in a way that they desire to be served, not in a way that you want them to, what you want to serve. Because that's a lower level. That's also love, but the higher level of love is you serve the beloved in a way that they want to be served. And so that shows more intimacy, in a relationship when it's like that, where you're even willing to give up your own wants and desires for the pleasure of the beloved. It's a natural thing. It's not artificial. So
beautiful.
Yeah. So I think in that way, as these different things change, because these I would say false identities that we accept, they're not false in and of themselves. It's like being a father, that's real. Being a husband is real. Being a monk is real. Being a teacher or whatever, that's real. Because it's a particular position that you're taking, and you're interfacing with other living entities and other human beings, especially in a particular way, according to those roles that you have. And therefore we have society and culture. But those positions themselves have nothing to do with us. Like, I am not a father, I am not a monk, I am not a teacher, I'm not a man. Because it's just right now I am in the position of those things and I can utilize them in service. That's the distinction.
So what are you then?
Sorry, I'm a spiritual soul, and I'm a servant of the Lord. It's like I'm just a servant, and in the material world right now, with a conditioned state of consciousness, trying to navigate, trying to realize my real self. That's what I am. So I think that.
So there's a couple of things that you said when you talked about that everything happens for a reason in these outside events that actually have us, when there is great change around you in your human society construct, and that it's a good thing that these false ideas get questioned so that you can actually look at them. Do you think we would be looking at, the question is do you think that we would be looking at these false ideas and identities without what I would say is a crisis? Without something changing around you, do human beings generally go questioning these things or looking about what's true?
Before I answer that, just to say we're at almost 25 minutes, so we've got a few minutes left.
Okay.
And to answer your question, I think in most cases, according to my observation, the answer is yes, it is required. Because if things get too cushy, then it's way too easy to be conditioned by the feeling of happiness, which is
Yeah.
brought about by these external things. And then there's no impetus to inquire or to apply yourself into transformation, you know, of yourself. Because why do you need to do it? Everything's fine. I feel that everything is fine, so there's nothing pushing you. I think it's not a requirement for these kind of undesirable things for you to do that. But generally speaking, we require that in order to pursue our real self-interest more, the spiritual self-interest. And it's few rare individuals that will, even in a very comfortable situation without any kind of pressure, they will pursue that. But in this planet, generally, it's a 50-50 division, you know, of good and bad, or happiness and distress. So it's also why it's a particularly powerful planet to be a human being on, because these elements, they're well balanced to facilitate this.
In my observations of, you know, those around me, and certainly in my life, is that I've got a whole lot more. I started looking deeper into what I actually am in crises. It seems that I learn, and most of the people around me, most of the transformational stories and journeys that people have taken have all started with some level of crises. There was something that wasn't, you know, even if you call it divine discontent, but there's some level of crises where people were not satisfied with what was going on. And fundamentally, something inside of them was unsatisfied, and I needed to look further into what this meant, who I am, and what's going on in a deep way. So I do believe crisis is really a huge element of that, and that it is happening for a reason. And I think most of the planet currently is having to deal with the entire planet is at home. Almost, you know, the vast majority of people, their life has changed, and I think this is only the beginning. We're no longer in Kansas, and hang on to your hat as things change, and that people get a little bit more confronted with that their world is changing. So the words that I would leave with you is that everything that is changing is created by human being as a construct, is made up. And everything that is connected to self and to Mother Earth and to all that is creation, that there is a design, is constant and real, and I can stand on it, and it's solid, and I can know myself because of it. So that felt good.
Yeah.
So to wrap up, is there any last words that you have there, Mr. Briot, sir?
Yeah, it's a mirage can never quench and satisfy your thirst. Only a real well full of water can do that. And this world is simply a mirage that we are all striving for, and that it's something which is as fleeting as the winds or the bubbles in the ocean who come up and they pop and then they disappear. Like that, this is the material world that we're in, and they cannot satisfy at all the soul, which is eternal by nature and far outlives any of these tiny little events which are happening now. So the only real way to quench your thirst is to drink from, you know, the spiritual source, the spiritual nature which we are.
Beautiful analogy, actually.
Thanks.
Thank you once again, Briot. We got through another day. So I'll see you tomorrow.
Yes, tomorrow, same time. I got the data now. So. All right, Brian, thank you very much.
Love and light, my friend.
Love
and light.